a lot of people panic whenever we get these pullbacks, and it's because of, the last 11 years realistically of markets. And, when you're in a bear mindset, even if it is a bull market, you're still thinking these pullbacks can be aggressive and fast and limitless. And what we saw with this pullback was extremely strong support around that 4,000 marker. And so, everybody's panicking, but at the same time, gold shot up from 3,800 to 4,400 over a very short period of time. With aggressive forwards, you're going to get aggressive backwards. It's just the nature of the beast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a quick reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products, or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. My guest today is Stefan Sklepovic, CEO of gold exploration company Kirkland Lake Discoveries. Steph, great to have you back in the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Lucho. Happy to be back again.
Thanks. We had an interview, if I remember correctly, that was late August, and you have done really a lot since then. And that is exactly what I want to cover today. Maybe we should start with the fresh. It's not fresh news, but it's very, very important. Your drilling success, your recent announcements highlighted impressive intercepts, and you will correct me if I'm wrong. 30 plus meters with 1.2 copper and 36.5 meters with over 1% copper. I believe those are approximate numbers. So
Pretty darn close, yeah.
Yeah, can you walk us through these results? What does it mean for the project potential, particularly the new gold and critical mineral discovery?
Yeah, that was probably what I was most excited about with these drill results. The copper was fantastic. There's no doubt about that. That was a good width from surface, good grade. It wasn't anything absolutely exceptional or sensational, but was really happy with those results. It was our first drill program, 1,700 meters, and we had great results from almost every single hole, which was exciting. But the thing that got us most excited was the new gold discoveries in the syenite. Those are blind tests. So basically, we were going off of soil geochemistry and geophysics, and we ended up hitting gold on those holes. And so for that, it was significant because that means that system is endowed. It was in an area that was 2 kilometers away from Winnie, where we had hit the copper. And what it does is it unlocks 2 different pieces. So where that intrusive body had come in, sometimes people don't understand intrusive, but if you were to think of a magma chamber underneath a volcano and it doesn't quite get to surface, that's what an intrusive is. And so that magma chamber can be boiling and shifting fluids around in that area, pulling fluids from the local rocks. And what we thought was going on was that intrusive was pulling mineralization, and that's where that copper and zinc and gold and silver on the outside of it was. But what we've now seen is that inside that intrusive is also endowed. And so what that does is it unlocks 2 styles of mineralization, both within the intrusion and outside the intrusion. And so it's basically doubled our prospectivity for what we thought was 17 kilometers. It's now double because it's both inside and outside. So it's a really big deal. And it's not necessarily that the numbers, again, are these massive economic numbers, but that was the first drill holes to test this. So it's the fun time is coming now.
No, definitely. I wanted to emphasize this. So from geological standpoint, if we consider this is a first drilling campaign, I would not call it jackpot, but it's very, very exciting, right?
Agreed. Yeah, it's and I'm with you, and I'm an economic person from that regard, in that I want to see these 100 gram meter intervals, but it was literally the first hole. And it's different when you have, so like this next program coming up, we're going to have multiple holes that are going to give us some geometry on that. But the first one, it's just like, yeah, it's there. So pursue it, go further with it. Means that, you start to look at the cracks a little bit differently around the pluton, because now it's a fluid system. So an orogenic / intrusion related, it's multiple events that are going together. And so it just changes how we approach things rather than looking at just getting across the contact. Now we're looking at, okay, so if those fluids came up there and there's this crack going away from the pluton and it meets up with another crack, those are really good traps for those fluids, and that's where we can get some serious gold accumulation.
Sure.
So the significance of that drill hole is it's completely understated up to this point in time what it actually means, because we like I said, we're getting multiple styles of mineralization now, but it's also changing how we have to approach things. And so the MT survey coming back, the magnetics are getting analyzed in different ways, because now rather than looking at it as just the intrusion, we have to look at it as a different system as well. So that's why it's been a little bit quiet on our front, because we've been extremely busy working through all these things because of the massive significance of this drill hole.
Yes, let's touch on the upcoming drilling program. You are planning a 25,000-meter diamond drill program. The preparations are underway. What are the top high priority zones you are targeting, and how will geophysical and geochemical data from the recent work inform the strategy?
Yeah, there's so many high priority targets. That's the fun part about this program, but at the same time, it's working through them in a logical order. So drill is on site. It's come to site as of yesterday. I haven't heard if we've started drilling yet this morning, but the likelihood of that is pretty high. These guys mobilize very quickly and efficiently. So it is starting imminently. What we're focusing on, in Northern Ontario, you have a freezing season and you have a thawing season, and then you have summer and winter. And so we're currently in the freezing season up in Kirkland Lake. It's been a very cold November so far. And so we're getting some minus 13 temperatures up there, which are great. That's exactly what we want. We want limited snow with a lot of cold temperatures, because that freezes the ground. And so there's a couple of areas where we have swampier or a little bit of water with mud and that type of stuff. And it's best accessed after everything is fully frozen. So we have two things that we're dealing with. We have our priority targets, and then we have conditions that we need to make sure that we're appreciating and taking advantage of. And so basically January is where is good to go. Everything will be frozen by that point in time. We'll have no restrictions or problems from that regard. And so right now we're looking at where are the best ground conditions that we can take advantage of while still following up on our priority targets. And so our first and foremost is looking at that new gold discovery and trying to get some geometry on where those veins are lying, how they're sitting, how they dip and strike. Because a singular hole through an area doesn't tell you anything in 3D. You just have a point. And so this will then allow us to start to draw some lines together, get an understanding of any type of fractures that are in the zone, and looking at it from, an orogenic standpoint rather than just, the intrusion related model. And so those holes are very important that we get right off the bat. And that's going to tell us, where we should be targeting going forward for that zone. And then we're also the other big one that I'm excited about is we're looking at between those 2 kilometers of new gold discoveries in the syenite. We're drilling between those. And so we're going to see if there's continuity of that syenite. Because based off of the MT survey, what we're seeing is a conductive body underneath the intrusion along the edges. And so we're thinking that syenite would have been a late phase of intrusive. So you had the granite that came up originally, and then a later stage was that syenite, and with that it brought gold bearing fluids. And so if that's the case, then there's almost like a pocket underneath of that massive intrusion. And so these holes are going to test that theory a little bit further to see, is that syenite continuing? Is there a connection between? Is there gold bearing fluids throughout that entire area? And then the third one that I'm most excited about is we're getting back to Winnie. We're actually testing the other side of the syenite intrusion. There's this nice magnetic low, and that was where we had that 1200 plus ppm bismuth sample, and that's where we want to get in there and see what does that other side look like. We have to wait for Winnie proper to freeze up a little bit more, so that we have more flexibility in where we're putting those holes. But those are kind of the first three big targets.
Excellent. Okay, draw me a picture. You have a massive land package over there. How much of this area you mentioned here is compared to the whole area? How much area are you exploring, and how much is left for further exploration?
This is taking up less than 30% of our land package. So this Winnie Pluton KL West, it's a relatively small area compared to the 40,000 hectares. So we're probably in that 10 to 15,000 hectare range. So there's still a lot of pipeline with regards to the rest of the property. The goal for me is to unlock regionally what we have first before we're getting into specifics of putting multiple holes to drill out a resource or something like that. I have to know how big we're working with, because realistically, with the proximity that we have to so many majors, I don't think we're going to get an opportunity to drill out a massive resource. So I want to know how many of these targets that we have around this intrusion, as well as within it, are prospective, and so that we can bring multiple drills onto site to target as many of these as we can at a time.
Sure. Let's presume I'm an investor interested to hear more about your company, your story, and I would ask you, what separates you from the other players in the Kirkland Lake camp?
There's a lot of things that separate us. We have an incredible management team that's had success across the exploration space, building up major discoveries from scratch. We have the biggest land package in the Kirkland Lake area, so there's nobody that comes close. We have a lot of blue sky. It's a lot of untested areas. A lot of times in Kirkland Lake, it's been a mining camp for 120 years, right? So a lot of these areas have been kicked in, rocks have been turned over, etc. And so this is a relatively fresh area in that it hasn't been explored because of the cover that's there. But with modern techniques, using geochemistry, soil geochemistry, using magnetics, using magnetotellurics, artificial intelligence, all those things are unlocking this land package that a lot of people weren't paying attention to. And so it's basically virgin ground in one of the most established brownfield camps. So we have a network of forestry roads. We have power going through the entire western side of our property, as well as another power line going through the eastern side. We have rail just off. We're right at the border of Agnico. We have, we're touching right along their northern border, our southern border, and it's 5 kilometers from Macassa, 2 kilometers from Upper Beaver. There's no one else has these same variables, and that's what sets us apart as a junior exploration company.
You forgot one thing, if you ask me, and that is you raised a big chunk of money this October. You raised over 12 million. You are actually fully funded for this exploration campaigns. But how does this capital injection accelerate your timeline, and what does investor confidence signal here?
Yeah, that's a big deal. And you're right. That is probably the biggest distinguishing factor amongst the other juniors. We had incredible support in this last financing. We brought the story to market. We have a really good vision, a really good management team, a really good technical team, and we got the respect of investors from that, right? So it was a non-brokered financing as well. So it was me basically vetting every single person that came into this deal and knowing that I'm happy with every single shareholder that we have. It was a lot of work on our side. There was a lot of paperwork, but it was well worth it because I'm confident in every single paper holder that we have. So, it was it was a definitely strong response from the market. The fact that the share price moved up after the financing was also a big deal. That tells us that we priced it
Yeah.
correctly and that there was, again, respect from the market for that. But what that means is that we can, instead of, having to take our time and diligently make sure that we're spending every single penny as safely as humanly possible, we can take a more aggressive approach. And with that, it's not necessarily that we're wasting money or spending money, in an aggressive way. It's all about efficiencies now. And so we can do multiple drills at the same time. We can have, two core loggers, two cutters working together, and that
Yeah.
they can take up load from the other individuals. We can bring on a team that can support it a little bit better. So we brought in a VP of exploration, Ben Cleland. He's a very experienced individual in the Abitibi. We're very excited to have him on board. We're bringing on more geologists. We have someone who's working in corporate development. So we're basically growing this team to more aggressively approach everything. And what that means is consistent news flow coming out with multiple drills turning and testing targets that have never been tested before. So the opportunity for massive discovery is it couldn't have been any better, right? And with that money, that's what it allows us to actually do that work properly.
Yeah, post financing, how is your share structure looking today? So, did you get new big boys on board? Did management participate? How is your share structure looking today?
So we had a really good support from existing shareholders, some institutional support. So we had Earth Labs continue to support the story. They're still sitting at a 9.9 position. Our chairmen are the same, and Denis Laviolette. So that's where we had basically an insider support from that regard. Other insider we had was Eric Sprott continuing his holdings with that, purchased over $1 million worth of shares. He loves the story, is continuing to support. Rob McEwen came back in. We had Crestcat Capital, which was another stamp of approval, which I am thrilled to have.
Yeah,
Quentin Henney knows geology very, very
yeah,
well, and
yeah.
so he's vetted the story, looking at it from that regard. And that was another big name that we ended up bringing in with that one. We had a commodity fund out of Singapore that came in to support the story, as well as quite a few other, whales, so to say, that remain anonymous. But it was a very far-reaching financing that brought in a lot of different capital, and some people who are new to the story, as well as the existing shareholders who had already, had significant gains. They came in to support it again, which was great.
What I like as as a shareholder of your company are those treasure hunter series. Those are episodes. I mean, you covered private placement, polymetallics, big range of topics.
Yeah.
It's a very fresh way to engage stakeholders, if you ask me. That's my opinion. What's your feedback, and how do you plan to use it to highlight ongoing developments?
Well, I think one of the reasons we had such big support in the financing was that people understood exactly what we were doing. They understood the story. They understood, that they could trust management to spend their money effectively. And that comes through all the communication and transparency that we have with the Treasure Hunter series. We're looking to level it up. I'm bringing on just a not quite part-time, but this, a new individual who's going to be working the cameras more consistently to give us true behind the scenes footage all the time, taking that off of the geos. Because up to this point, it's been, all right, Mike and Drake, put your GoPro on, get out there, do a little talk to the camera. Now it'll be somebody who's going to be taking care of that. So it's not a significant investment, but what it does is it gives us more ammunition to be able to put out more videos more consistently. And there's going to be more stuff going on, so we can support that role, because there's multiple drills, multiple areas, multiple teams of geologists. And so we're going to be continuing to do that. And it's not necessarily just keeping it status quo. We're going to level it up. The production team is looking at different software to be able to communicate the maps a lot better. So it's going to be a very fun season 2. Lots of stuff going on. We'll have new characters coming in with the addition of, the VPX. We're going to see our chairman involved quite a bit more now that the story is evolving, as well as the new geologist. So it's, to me, it's really fun. I think it's going to be the way of the future for these companies, because most people don't understand exploration.
Agreed.
And if you can at least have communication with education combined to it, it allows the layman to get a better feel for what you're actually doing.
Agreed. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you would like to address to the shareholders and my audience?
Um, I don't think so, Lucha. You covered more than I remembered. So
Okay.
the big thing is that drill program. So just to summarize it again, the drills are turning. It's better for us to drill in the winter for a lot of these areas, and so it's very different than a lot of Canada where the winter is a time to shut down. For us, it's a great opportunity to get out there and access areas that are harder in the summer.
Sure.
And so that drill will be turning consistently. We take a small break at Christmas to let the guys rest and recover during that time. But then come New Year, second drill is on site, and we'll be doing 2 full crews, 2 full drills, consistently all the way through probably till the spring breakup, which will be late March, April. So that's a lot of meters that are going to be coming out consistently.
So when do you expect the news flow started to inflow?
Well, we'll update probably this week, next week, with the plan and exactly where we're targeting and why we're targeting those areas. And then from there, assays we've switched labs to ALS, and they basically will come to site, pick up our samples biweekly. So Tuesday and Thursday or Monday and Friday type of thing, they're going to come grab the samples, which then puts them into the queue. And then depending on how many other companies are drilling, or what the backlog is, turnaround time can be anywhere between 4 and 12 weeks. So, being that we're in the winter and a lot of other companies can't be working, there could be some faster turnarounds, but I think we're still catching up on the late fall drilling, those types of things. So I'm going to lean closer to that 2-month marker type of thing. So I'm hoping early January we're going to be getting that consistent news flow, and it'll just be coming out consistently after that.
Okay, final thoughts on the gold market. How do you assess the current state, and where do you see it in 2026?
So a lot of people panic whenever we get these pullbacks, and it's because of the last 11 years realistically of markets. And when you're in a bear mindset, even if it is a bull market, you're still thinking these pullbacks can be aggressive and fast and limitless.
Yeah.
And what we saw with this pullback was extremely strong support around that 4,000 marker. And so you know, everybody's panicking, but at the same time, gold shot up from 3,800 to 4,400 over a very short period of time. With aggressive forwards, you're going to get aggressive backwards. It's just the nature of the beast. And so we're seeing a little bit of a consolidation in this, let's say 3,800 to 4,200 range. To me, that's a very strong bull movement. We have to have some pullbacks. The bull's trying to shake you off. So we're going to get that pullback, and then we should see some consolidation. I don't know how long it's going to be. I can't predict the future, but
Sure.
if it's anything like the last ones we've seen, we see a few months of consolidation, and then we see this, this big leg up. The nothing has changed in the broader scheme of things. It's not like we have a more stable economy. It's not like we have
No.
world peace everywhere.
No.
There's still all of these pieces that are still pointing to a stronger gold price. So, for me, I'm looking at this as a buying opportunity for a lot of these stocks that are still undervalued significantly. $4,000 gold makes a lot of these projects way more viable and profitable than they were at 2,000. right? So this, to me, this could be the last buying opportunity for a lot of these mid tiers that are getting gobbled up. I think we're going to see a lot of consolidation over the next 6 months to a year, realistically. And then, those juniors are still, pennies on the dollar potentially, right? And if the market's going the way that we're expecting here, then the next year is going to be wild for those junior companies, because there's no there's no reserves left outside of it. We have to find new ones. All the smaller pieces are getting gobbled up. In Canada, it's an interesting look through. But if you look through all of the top 10 deposits in Canada, 9 of them are owned by Agnico,
Yeah.
right? And one of them is owned by IM Gold, and then that's it, right? They're going to continue to bring those things in because they're running out of reserves. Macassa only has a 5-year mine life. They
Yeah.
need to find more gold. And the people who are finding it are these junior cos, because we're willing to take the risk. We're willing to dedicate our entire focus to one thing. Whereas these majors, they don't look at that type of stuff. They're purely focused on ensuring that they have really good production numbers and efficiencies. They're paying a dividend to their shareholders. And there's a lot of safety that goes along with that. But they're not willing to take those risks to grow their exploration. And that's where we come in to basically take those risks and have that big payoff potentially.
No, couldn't agree more. However, with the juniors, I believe there will be diversification between the quality juniors and less quality juniors, aka moose pastures. So definitely the ability of raising money will be important, just like you raised recently, and those kind of things, ticking all the right boxes. And you are doing just that. Stefan, thank you very much for joining me today. Always a good chat with you.
My pleasure, Lucho.